the good thing is that it's actually a completely net zero product because there's no byproduct. We're not wasting anything.
Welcome to the Business Growth Masterclass, where business growth is made simple. I'm your host, Albert Gillespie.
And I'm your co-host, Kellen Ketchersid. Join us as we bring you stories from business leaders so you can learn from their wins, their losses, and everything in between.
Today's guest is the CEO or COO of Tsunami Products, a US-based manufacturing company that manufactures atmospheric water generation machines that make drinking water out of thin air. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Ryan Dykes.
Hey, thank you, man. Honored to be here.
I'm excited, man. We went to lunch a month or so ago, and we knew each other way back when. Much younger and a lot less going on in our lives, but got to catch up and really hear what you guys have been working on. Give us the skinny. What is Tsunami Products? What do you guys do?
Yeah, sure. Speaking of skinny, I was a lot skinnier back then too when we first knew each other. So Tsunami Products, we are like you said, an American-made manufacturing company, and we make atmospheric water generators or atmospheric water harvesters. And so what that is we're virtually doing something and using a technology that's been around for almost 100 years. The first patent for AWG was filed almost 100 years ago. And so the technology that we're capitalizing and growing isn't something that's new. We're just making it more efficient, more easy to use, scalable, and things like that. So we take hot, humid air that's existing in the atmosphere. So one thing that most people don't know is the Earth's atmosphere has 6 times more fresh water available to us than all freshwater sources on Earth. And so there's this vast amount of water in the atmosphere. We breathe it in every single day. And so what we're doing is we're taking that hot, humid air, pulling it into our machine, running it over a set of our patented coils, and we're virtually cooling it off as fast as we can. And so once the air gets in the machine, we hold that air as long as we can while it's running through our coil system. We're collecting all the water that's in the air, condensing it down into a liquid, goes into a holding tank. From there, it comes out and goes through a multi-stage filtration process. And it creates, in our opinion, the cleanest drinking water in the world and best tasting. Just from what we've been told. And so, that's what we're doing. And the big thing about our technology that's unique to, in comparison to like desal or RO, is that we don't have a byproduct. So everything that our machine pulls in, every bit of water that it captures, we use. There's no wastewater. We're not disposing of any water. We're not putting things back in the ground, back in the ocean. And so it's a completely closed loop system on how we get our water and how we're able to just be as efficient as possible with the resource that we're given and capitalize on it 100%.
Okay, what are some applications of this? Like, what are use cases?
Yeah, so we always joke with that it's everyone, because everyone drinks water, right? And so the biggest ones for us have been, there's been a few. So the big one that I'll start with, just because it's kind of something new that's been going on for us, is we distribute all of our products through a distribution network. So we have distributors all around the world, from Qatar to Indonesia, Africa, Mexico, obviously the US. And one of our distributors, who's in Qatar, her name's Rana Kurdi. She's a former retired colonel, US Army. And she is doing what I think is one of the best things that you can do with our technology, and that is to use our technology to fill a need or a void that's happening in the marketplace. And so what she's doing is, in Doha, Qatar, she has a water bottling plant. And so back in, I think it was 2020, 2021, when the World Cup was held in Qatar, they banned all single-use plastic bottles overnight. Just done. Can't have them, don't want them, we don't have a place to put them or dispose of them, whatever it may be. And so all of a sudden, the market for bottled water in Qatar went from, all of these different brands to like two suppliers that were supplying water to the entire country. And so she saw this and was like, hey, there's a big market out here, and I can be different by using a different water source, the atmosphere, because their groundwater is lacking, and they use desal, but desal is harmful, to wildlife and things like that.
Because you have to do something with all that salt after you pull it out.
Yeah. So if you're not pumping it far enough back into the ocean, it's over salting virtually the bay or wherever it is that you're pulling it from.
Yeah, where there's all the fish that we eat.
Yeah, fish and industry and things like that. And so you have to be mindful of where your byproduct's going, which is why AWG is so cool, because we don't have a byproduct. And so she saw this, and so she started Skydrops Water in Qatar and started bottling water with washable bottles, and it's virtually a delivery service where she's sending out water, you use it, send it back, kind of like the milkman, back in the day. She washes them, and it's just rinse and repeat. And so she took our machines and filled a need in the market that was lacking. And so now she's in Qatar. She's building a plant in Malaysia and also Saudi Arabia. And so, she's expanding, and she's doing sparkling water, flavored water, all these things. And so that's one scenario. Another one that's really big for us is the data center space. And if, most people, I'm sure, know a lot about what it takes to operate a data center. You need a ton of water and a ton of air conditioning. And so
maybe they don't. And so let me jump in there. Data centers, basically, a lot of the AI systems that we use all the time today require 7 times the amount of computing power and energy.
Yep.
And so you have these large server farms that require a ton of energy.
Mm-hmm.
They also get really hot, and they also need to be in a controlled environment. And so enter, air conditioning and water to keep it cool. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. So that great segue into our new product is called the Typhoon. And so what the Typhoon does is we use a different cooling mechanism that's different from just traditional refrigerant, like you would have in like your AC condenser outside of your house. And so what that allows us to do is it allows us to create water in large volumes, because the Typhoon is designed to be scalable. And so we can virtually go from, if you need 400 gallons of water or if you need 4 million gallons of water, we can scale that up with our system by just adding more chilling capacity. And so the difference, though, with this compared to like our normal models is by utilizing a chilling system, we're actually producing a byproduct of cold air. And so what this is allowing us to do is, like you said, for these server rooms that have to be a certain temperature all the time, certain humidity level, they're using water-based cooling to cool the systems as well, whatever it may be, we can actually come in and we actually give back that water that they may be pulling from the ground, or they use our machines for the entirety of their facility. A lot of data centers actually have a steam byproduct that comes off their cooling tower. So they're evaporating all of this water, which, is getting rid of it. But the problem is that if you can't recapture it, it's just wasted. And so you've used all this water and it's just going back up in the atmosphere. And so what we're working on with the Typhoon is a way to, we're actually working with Arizona State and Texas Tech, and Texas Tech and the Produced Water Consortium to take produced water that's being evaporated, recapture it, and that way we can create an entire closed loop system so that the data center now doesn't have to use, municipal type water. Or if they are using municipal water, we can actually be the byproduct that's putting water back into the city and balancing out what it is that they're pulling out by giving it back, by creating water while providing the cooling for their building.
Okay. So far we've got a couple of use cases. One is drinking water in the desert.
Yep.
And then another application is for cooling and water in data centers, which is a growing, hot, incredibly expensive asset of real estate.
Mhm.
What keep going down the path? What are some other main use cases?
Yeah, the other big one for us is actually the United States Department of Defense. And
Okay.
so a mandate came out about 2 years ago that all future expeditionary forces, so any forces leaving the United States to go to war or training exercises, whatever it may be, have to start using atmospheric water generation as a source for how they get their drinking water. And the reason being is, if most people don't know, water is unbelievably heavy. It's bulky. It's not good to package. It's one of the most logistically annoying things to move.
Yeah.
The sloshes, just all of it. And so when you think of the military, like the war, Global War on Terror, so a lot of their water sources, most of it was shipping bottles of water over, to the Middle East over and over and over and over again. And so we did a study of sending water to a certain location, and we were over 90% more efficient in getting water to location because we only need one trip. So you're taking out a logistical nightmare of constantly shipping bottled water, dropping it out of airplanes. Parachute doesn't work right, it explodes, water's everywhere, and it creates a really big danger point for a lot of people because someone has to go get that water. Well, if it's out in the middle of a field and there's water bottles everywhere and you're walking around picking up water, you're kind of out in the open and an easy target. And so what this allows them to do is to control their water supply, because again, I don't need a water source to make water. I use the atmosphere. And so you're not worried about contamination as far as someone contaminating a local water source. You limit the logistics of moving water halfway across the world. And so and the resources too of not, just jet fuel alone to move that much water, maintenance, all these things. And so that's a really big one for us. We're doing a big training exercise with an allied country in the United States here in late 2026, where they're taking our products and some others and virtually doing this exercise of proving that atmospheric water generation is the more viable source of water for future outgoing expeditionary forces.
Okay. This is crazy. You said this is like a technology that's been around for 100 years. Essentially this is a condenser unit that everyone has outside of their home, but just configured in a way that can produce water and capture water.
Yep.
What is the, like, does this take a ton of energy to like how, what are the inputs to this, as far as out in the middle of the desert in some war zone, you got the atmosphere. What else does it take?
Yeah. So it runs off any source of just power, right? So it could be grid power, generator. We actually have a company out of Fort Worth that does hydrogen fuel cells that use our water to run their electrolyzer. And so any source of power can do it. Wind as well. Power is the one thing that we're always working on, is making our machine, one, easier just for the end user. So for example, we have a customer out in Austin that has a machine. She's almost 70 years old. She changes the filters and everything by herself. So we try and make it as user-friendly as possible, and as user-friendly as possible for any technical needs that may come up, where, a refrigerant tech, HVAC tech, or an electrician can go out and they're using, standard American type parts that they know how to work on and fix and adjust. But the biggest thing for us, where we try and maximize our exposure, is by recycling the air that we're pulling in. And so one thing a compressor does is it can get super hot or your condenser gets super hot when it's super hot outside. So your electricity use goes up. So what we do is we pull in that atmosphere. When it hits that coil, that byproduct of the air is cold. And so we know with the Typhoon, we're sending that out for that specific application. For our other machines, we're actually recycling the air back onto our condenser to lower the electrical requirement that is needed. But the one cool thing about power for us, there's a municipality down in South Texas that is having a very, very bad water problem, about to be in a stage 4 drought. They're in a pickle. And the one thing that, we're talking to them about with the Typhoon is a municipal style design, where we can produce in the millions of gallons of water a day. But if you can pair it with renewable energy like solar or wind, the good thing is that it's actually a completely net zero product because there's no byproduct. We're not wasting anything. And so it allows them the opportunity for grants and other things to actually come in and fix their problem and not leave a footprint on what they're doing. And they can start to rebuild and restructure their existing infrastructure, while also capitalizing by using, atmospheric water generation.
Okay. So as far as like energy consumption, compare it to, a typical household air conditioning unit. Is it, equivalent to that, or is it 10 times that? What's the energy need?
Yeah. So for like our small machine, I usually say it's about the energy use of a dryer. So, but actually maybe even a little
like
less.
a hair dryer or a clothes dryer?
Like a clothes dryer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So washing machine dryer or something like that. Or like a large freezer, so that's about the equivalent of what you're going to use. For our larger machine, the tonnage is similar to an AC condenser. So we're going to use a little bit more power because we're maximizing its output by getting the coil as cold as we can get it to get the most water off of it, pulling in more air so we have more fans. But yeah, I'd say it's equivalent to that. It's going to be a little more, but the difference is you're just getting a byproduct of something that you don't have. And so it's quantifying, what's the value of that water for you if you don't have it.
Okay, man, this is like such a, one of those like big problems. Like we need water. That's the most essential thing, I guess, next to the air we breathe.
Yep.
We need water. And so this is one of those incredibly impactful, being in West Texas, we live in a dry climate.
Yep.
We have a farm and ranching, are two of our three biggest industries, and they need a lot of water. How did you get into this? Like the applications are so big and so broad, and you're just a kid from West Texas. How'd you get into this?
Geez. Yeah, so I'll just do a quick backstory. So yeah, I grew up here in Lubbock, actually. I went to Friendship High School, go Tigers, Coach O. Went to Texas Tech University, got a degree in management, and then immediately moved to Dallas and was in the construction business for 9 years, from residential all the way up to commercial, office towers. And I knew during that time I always wanted to work for myself. I just didn't really know what that was going to be. Was that I want to build homes one day, or, I knew I wanted that. I just didn't really know how to get there. And towards the end of that stage of my life, Steven, my partner now, and his dad, who's our other partner, called me and was like, "Hey, I kind of have a crazy idea that we're going to start a distribution business, and we're going to go out and distribute and sell this technology." Steven's dad, who's like a mentor to me, is so good at just researching things that are outside of his normal just sphere of life. And so like he's in the oil business, but he's always looking at renewable energy and other ways to do things outside of what he's used to, serial entrepreneur type guy. And so he found AWG probably 10 plus years ago, because, there's other companies out there that do it, and just started researching it. And we found at the time what was kind of the big player in the market. And they started talking to him, and were like, saw the vision that we have now, of that there is a big need for water. There's different ways to get water, and there's more efficient ways to do it. And so we started they called me like, "Hey, do you want to start this distribution company and start selling these things?" And I'm like, "Sure, why not? Love to not make a salary. Let's just go for it." And so yeah, just kind of took the plunge, and went down the rabbit hole of entrepreneurship, and definitely hasn't been easy by any means. It's probably been the hardest thing I've ever done, apart from being a parent. But we started distributing for one of our bigger competitors now. Actually sold some machinery down at Starbase in South Texas. It's got to see all the rockets and stuff, so it was cool. And we just realized during that process that there's what we believed was a better way to do the technology that we believed in, that there was a more efficient way to do it. It could be more simple, more user-friendly, energy efficient, easier to move, just all these things. And so, as we were distributing, we started just looking around of, we're patriots. Like, we wanted to do something in the United States, especially logistically. And that's how we found Tsunami. Our partner, Kevin, where we manufacture all our equipment up in Washington, where our plant is, he was a telecom manufacturer of like 5G boxes has been for the last 25 years. And he got hired out to build an atmospheric water generator by a company that doesn't exist now. And so he built it. They went out of business, and he's like, well, I like this thing. And he's real kind of go-getter type guy. And so he just started building more of them and, doing a lot of R&D work without calling it R&D work, and just kind of making it more efficient. And that's right when we met him. And so we flew to Washington, and we're like, hey, here's what we've done. Here's where we think this technology can go and what it can do. But we need a better product. And he's like, that's great. I need someone to sell it because I'm in my late 50s and don't want to go down that rabbit hole. And we're like, sweet, we're 30, let's do it. And so it was just this really organic, conversion that we had with him. And so we bought half of Tsunami, and that's kind of how we got started. And it took a lot of R&D for us, a lot of development. Most people don't know that we do, they don't know what it is that we actually do. They hear it and they're like, oh, sounds cool. So like RO, or is that like T-cell? And we're like, no, not even close. And so it just took really years of just educating people that there's a different way to get water than the standard way that we've been doing it for thousands of years, drill well, whatever.
Okay. There's a lot there. And so let me paraphrase the story is, essentially there was another manufacturer outside of the country manufacturing these, and you guys started out as essentially a distributor for them. And through that, you noticed, you had some stuff breaking down that shouldn't, some parts that were a little more sophisticated that didn't need to be.
Sure.
And, you guys are giving input to that manufacturer, hey, these various components, they're way too complicated. We don't need it to be able to do 20 different things. It really it's got 2 jobs, and let's simplify some stuff. Along the way, you guys, like the entrepreneurs that I know, are curious, and you keep noticing these problems, and you keep asking questions, and you meet guys along the way. And I feel like I've seen this in my own life, and I've seen it in so many other entrepreneurs' life, that you meet people along the way, and you develop relationships that, that one coffee, that one dinner, you don't know where this relationship is going, but you just met somebody of high character, who's driven, who's curious, and you just continue the relationship.
Yep.
And so your partner out of Washington, basically, manufacturing this piece of equipment for somebody else who winds up going out of business and is curious about it. And you guys keep talking. You can't let it go. There's something there, and you buy into that company.
Yep.
That's maybe it doesn't feel like a traditional path, and it's not a traditional path, but man, there's so many different ways to do business.
Sure.
And to have the courage to keep going, to spend the money, to buy into another company, like that. What was that like? Like making the decision of hey, we're going to buy 50% of this company. How do you believe in yourself? How do you believe in the vision that much to do that?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think we just there's something that happens when people actually see and taste the water for the first time. And I think when, we were at Starbase, and there's kind of there's always a little bit of doubt, right? When you first install one of these things, because people are like, is this really going to work? Like, I'm the first one using this. I've never seen it. And the water comes out, it tastes great. The production is what we say it's going to be, and it's actually solving their need, and you see them get it. And especially when you see companies that are doing really, really cool things to begin with, that are kind of like, whoa, and they kind of step back and think, you know, this actually can solve our need. I think we just saw that, and then we saw it on a bigger scale that, you know, if someone like this, like Starbase, can see the value in what we're doing, then there are hundreds of applications around the world. And so, for us, it was a big leap of faith, a lot of trust in the Lord, of like, we're diving in, like, I need you to go first here, right? Like, give us some guidance and direction, and that's where, like, I lean on, Steven's dad a lot. Alan, who's the head of our board, is, he's, like I said, a mentor to me, and I've watched him do this same thing, or even from the ground up, whatever it may be, so many times. And he's been so transparent of times that he's won, and then also times where he's like, I whiffed, that, like, or that just didn't work in the way that I thought it was going to. So we knew there was risk there, but I think both Steve and I, especially, we saw where we could be one day, and neither one of us wanted to look back and be like, man, should have tried it, and now that we're at this point, from don't know when your next paycheck's coming, to, machinery not working the way that you thought it would, and you got to go back to the drawing board, whatever it is. There's just been so many doors that have opened for us, and so much more. There's such a big need out there for what we're doing, that, in our opinion, we don't think we've even really scratched the surface of what we can do and the applications that are out there. And so it was really just a big step of faith, and trusting in ourselves that, that what we were seeing take place, that we could convince other people that there is an actual need for what we're doing.
Man, I got to speak to some up and comers yesterday, and we were talking about, like, what are some of the most valuable skill sets that you can have in the marketplace, and one of them is sales. Is arguably the most valuable skill set that you can have, and that's the backbone of y'all's businesses. Okay, let's go sell this, help articulate the problem that we're solving, take the customer through the journey of how our product is going to solve that problem. And then you guys have just, like, reiterated and iterated around the product, is how can we make it better all the time. How in the world do you get to Starbase? Like that? Like, I gotta think that our listeners hearing that, like, holy crap, this West Texas kid found himself out in Elon Musk's Starbase, where they're launching rockets and satellites into outer space. Tell me about that. Like, I guess what you can share.
Sure.
Tell me about that experience.
Yeah, they just called, and not us, but, their manufacturer, and we're like, hey, we're interested, and we just happen to have Texas as our distribution area. And they're like, hey, this company called Starbase is calling. We're like, we got it. Don't worry, And so, that was actually really, they're very forward thinking on a lot of things. And so, that was really, honestly, like, one of our easier sales, to be transparent, because they just think differently than other people think, of, like, how can we solve our problem quicker, faster, and more efficient than anybody else? Well, we don't have water. Trucking in water is not efficient. Can we just make our own water? And that was their thought. And then when they get a thought, they just act on it. That's just how they operate out there, which was really inspiring for us with our technology, is being adaptable. That has been, there's so many applications, like, for example, we're going out to it's called Biggendorf, the Brackish Groundwater Desalination National Research Facility in Alamogordo. Big word, big
Okay.
name. They test water, and so we're going out there next week in conjunction with Tech, and they want to. There's companies that will take produced water, steam it off into the atmosphere, kind of like a cooling tower on a data center or a building, and the thought is, okay, well, if we're wasting all this water, we're evaporating it, which is great, but can we recapture it? And so, for us, the thing that we learned with that experience down at Starbase and multiple others is that our technology is never going to be perfect, and there's always going to be different avenues that we can take to transform our technology to meet different needs. And so that's why we created the Typhoon, was one, for bigger water production in the cold air, but also giving us an ability to capture a byproduct of something else instead of just using the atmosphere. And so that's been really big for us. Is we've never, and I hope we never do, get to a point where our technology is perfect and it can never get better. It can always change. It can always adapt. We want feedback. We tell, when we work with the military all the time, and that's the beauty of like owning our own manufacturing, that we get the added perk of that, but of being able to do this. But we tell them all the time, like, hey, if there's something you don't like, please tell me, because I'll change it, and we can change it. And so it's approaching it with as much humility as we can, that we don't have all the answers, but we'll do whatever we can to get it fixed so that we can capitalize on the opportunity.
Okay, you've mentioned technology will never be perfect. It's not perfect, and your mentor Alan has had some whiffs. Tell me about some of the whiffs that you guys have had. What's a war story that you came out better for?
Oh man, probably the biggest ones are. Let me think. It's a lot of the biggest struggle that we found is finding good distributors. That's been where, we find one, we think they're awesome, they're going to, go burn the world down, and then they just disappear, and so that's been a big learning curve for us. Is, when people hear about what we do, a lot of people are like, wow, that's awesome. And they can quickly see like where it could go. And so then it turns into, I have 1,000 people that need this tomorrow. And we're like, oh, great. So when you're young and starting out, you're like, yeah, go, go sell whatever. And we've learned now that when we talk to new companies or new people that are interested in selling, we've got to get the first thing established is like, what are you solving by using our technology? What are you going to fix? What are you going to, build up in your, community, or whatever it is that is lacking? How can our technology actually fix it? And once they figure that out, then they've had a whole lot more success. And so we've just learned the hard way a lot of times of sending machines out or thinking, oh, this person's, the next Moses for us is just going to go and do it. And it just doesn't pan out the way that we thought. And so it's just made us be, made us have a lot step back before we just really commit to something, to make sure that there's actually a problem that can be solved. That's been big for us. We've done some deals. The other one is that, with our traditional system, they don't work in certain environments. If it's super cold, super dry, like Arizona, like there's no humidity in the air. So with traditional refrigerant, you can't really, there's no water to capture because there's no water in the air. And so that's been a big learning curve for us of maybe thinking like, the humidity's, it's right there. I think it'll be okay. And then we send the machine out and we've had to be like, well, that was on us. We thought it could do more than it could. And we thought it could stretch past what it's capable of. And it, it didn't. And so we had to own those things, but it's taught us like where our markets are and what temperature and humidity levels for certain parts of our machine are going to be the best, and where like we just can't meet a need in certain areas. Um, but on the flip side, it's made us create a product that now works in colder, humid environments like San Francisco. So at the Typhoon, because we don't use traditional refrigerant, it can operate down to 34 degrees. So if you have 95 to 100% humidity, but it's 50 degrees outside, our normal machine would freeze, where this one can actually still pull that water out of the air and make water. And so you you take the beating a little bit, but it's the follow up of, okay, how do we not make the mistake again, and can we actually figure out a way to make water in these areas by changing our machine?
Okay, distributors. That's a unique tactic. How do you guys? I mean, you talked through kind of having some growing pains in finding the right distributors.
Yep.
What's some practical advice that you have for the average business owner whenever they're considering setting up a network of distributors? Whether it's requiring them to order a certain amount of inventory, whether it's papering that up with proper contracts, or what's some like practical advice that you have
Yep.
for other business owners that would like to use distributors?
Yeah. The biggest one for us is them buying in. So actually buying product, because you can't. I could explain AWG on this microphone all day, and you're never going to fully understand it unless you see it. And that's where when we get sales, a lot of times it's because someone finally physically saw it, they drank the water, felt it, whatever, and they're like, oh, okay, it actually works. And so that's been our biggest one, is like, you have to have machinery. It has to be on the ground where you're at. People have to come see it, see how it works, see how simple it is, that it's not some, our saying is like, water from air isn't magic, it's science. Like, it's not magic. We're not just creating, some thing that doesn't exist. And so that's been really big for us. Like I said, finding and making sure that they actually have a problem that they can solve in their local economy or marketplace, that where our machines can actually bring value to that place. So that's really big. And then also just education is huge, because it's not, I can explain what it does, but I explain what it does every day of my life. Where for someone that's new, you can get lost kind of in the weeds or the technicalities, or people can confuse, or they, compare it to RO or a well or decel or whatever it is. And so that's been really big for us, is taking the time through numerous phone calls or video calls or in-person trainings to actually teach them how the technology works, how to serve it themselves, how to create, different revenue streams through service contracts where they can go change filters or do service, once a year, whatever it may be. And so those are probably the big three things that have made a difference in those that are successful and those that aren't.
Okay, I love that. And let me summarize that. It's whenever you have a distributor, they've got to buy in, which means they need to buy some equipment.
Yep.
They need to buy some of your product. If they sign the distributor contract that, you have this profit sharing arrangement, they need to put their money where their mouth is.
Yep.
And buy some product.
Yep.
Having the product there where their potential customers can touch and see and feel, that is vital. And then you need to support them. And I love how you articulated that of, it's not just the education calls. It's not, you going in there and just showing them how to do it. It's also helping them build a successful business model with those service contracts. That's brilliant. That's great. And so I want our listeners to be thinking of that, especially if you have, a product that you're selling. How can you support those distributors? How can you help them make more money? How can you train them to service this equipment? Because really, when you do that, like, you're building an army of people who can service your equipment all over the world for you guys. That's brilliant. And man, that's a great takeaway. Obviously you guys are all over the world at this point. What are you excited about in the future?
Oh man. I want to make one more point real quick about the distributor, then I'll answer that while I'm still thinking of my answer. The other thing too that's been vital for us is showing up and supporting distributors and things that they're doing. So we've had distributors that are like, hey, I'm doing a trade show, like a local city trade show. And I have a T50, but I'd love to show the fire department and police department your trailer mounted machines. Great. We'll be there. And so I've driven all over the country pulling our machinery around and showing up, and it is their booth. It's their image, their business, all those things. And we're there as subject matter experts, and I'm making sure the machine runs, handing out water. And so it's also like, hey, if you're going to buy in, I'm going to buy right back into you as well and support what you're doing. So I think that's another one as well, is like, okay, cool, go sell. It's like, it just doesn't, for us, it doesn't work like that. Like we've got to buy into what, if we're trusting them to sell our product, then I need to buy into them and make sure that I'm giving them every opportunity to sell it at the highest capacity that they can.
Yeah. That's just being a good partner all the way around. And it's not a magic pill. It's not easy, but it works.
Yep. What are we excited about? For us, just as a business, is that I think we are barely scratching the surface of what the market could be. More and more, we read articles every single day of areas and cities. Cities with millions of people that are struggling with where they're going to get their water. Like Monterrey, Mexico, for example, there's over 1 million people there. There have been points where they literally don't have any water. No one has water. Like it's a big problem, and we're just seeing it more and more. And so, but they don't have groundwater. They're not close enough to the ocean. So where are you going to get it? You're going to truck it in, and so it's there. People are starting to, and even this big city down in South Texas are starting to understand that they're having to think outside of the box of how they're going to get their water. And so that's huge for us. The data center world is, I think, just beginning as well. And they're going to have to get more efficient because, there's 3 data centers that popped up in Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, and they pull 600, 800,000 and 1 million gallons of water a day out of the ground. Well, if you keep doing that over and over and over and over again, eventually you're going to tap your water source. And so that for us that's a huge growth, vertical for us that we see. And then the other big one is the Department of Defense. There's just so many applications. We have so many, forward operating bases around the world that are in logistically constrained environments. And so if we can help, one, make the warfighter safer, and then 2, take the logistical burden off of, how they get their drinking water so they can focus on more important things, and then supplying them with just safe water in general. That's really big for us. So those are the 3 big ones. Then I'd say the last one is figuring out how to recapture produced water. We're in the Permian Basin, right? We inject, I think it's like 37 million barrels of water a day back into the Permian. And so that's something for us is that we see a lot of, and that's why we're going to New Mexico is there's a way that we can recapture this water, get it cleaned, and start giving it back to the farmer, the rancher, the city. Can it go back into the aquifer? I don't know. All these things of that just for because we don't really do business in West Texas because it's a dry climate, right? Like that shit. We have done some, but not a whole lot. But that for us is monumental of, we're getting to all these different countries and places around the US, but we also see a big need just in our backyard that we could help resupply a lot of the groundwater that's being used for other things. And so, yeah, those are the big ones for us.
Man, I wanted to have you on just to hear your story, man. The scale and the type of problem that you guys are helping solve is like, it's crazy. It's crazy to think of, a kid from Friendship, Wolfeth,
Yeah, Wolf.
to just down the street, like a kid from West Texas solving a big problem like that, and all over the world, and having the courage, having the tenacity, having the curiosity, having the wisdom to seek mentors and guys that have been there, done that, is just inspiring to hear. And I don't know, man, like that's so cool that you're doing such big things. And there's so much more potential. Like like water. Like what a amazing thing. And I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
What a great story. How do I send people to you, and how do people do business with you?
Yeah, tsunamiproducts.com has all of our contact information. We have all of our flyers, videos, things like that you can go to. We're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Just search Tsunami Products. Yeah, so that's the easiest one. Daniel, our business development manager, actually has his phone number on our website. So like we're very easy to get in contact with because we have to be, and we want to be. We want to reach as many people as we can. So that's really the easiest way. It's just go through our website. So
great. All right, we'll put that in our show notes.
Perfect.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. If you are a business owner or leader and you feel stuck in your business, and your business has plateaued and you don't know how to get to the next level, go to our website, stagcoaching.com, and in the upper right-hand corner, click to book your free consultation. And in your free consultation, we'll give you the next 3 steps you need to take to get your business to the next level. It's free, and it's on our website, stagcoaching.com. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next one.